Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Irish Craft Beer Show, where today we're joined again by John Craddock.
Hello.
And special guest today from the Sunday Business Post, we have Pint of View professional beer writer Emmet Ryan.
And only a few of you hate me.
After this, maybe a few more, but we'll see.
We'll see.
So today I thought we'd just have a chat about a recent trip that a few of us members of Beoir took to head down to the Black's Brewery in Kinsale. How it actually came about was just over a year ago when Sam Black was trying to set up his brewery. He started a crowdfunding campaign. Now, to me, this is the first of its kind in Ireland. I don't know if any other brewery have gone down the crowdfunding route. Maybe a few have gone since then. But so just on Indiegogo, you could donate whatever level of money you want, and there was a few different levels of rewards. Like if you donated €10, you got a key ring or something. €20, you got a T-shirt. And the interesting one that a few of us saw was, if you donated €1,000, you got invited down to the brewery once it opened to brew your own batch and got to keep a crate of it for yourself. So
that must have been really exciting for you guys, because obviously you're all passionate home brewers. I know one or two of the guys would have had experience working in breweries, but you really got to be like kids in the candy store.
That was basically it. So all we had to do was come up with a recipe. Now, what do you think happens when you have 40 beer nerds voting on a recipe?
A big row.
A big row, but I'd say unanimity going towards something reasonably strong.
Something reasonably strong was what came out, and we didn't want it to be designed by committee, so we all said that we'd just come up with a style. Very quickly we settled on a double IPA, because back in those days there was no double IPA in Ireland. This is the dark days of early 2013. I mean, we had O'Hara's had just released their double IPA, and while it was great, it wasn't what we were looking for. It was almost there, but not quite. So we said we want to show the breweries what we want. So came up with a double IPA. And on one of our regular monthly meetings in the Bull and Castle, one of our esteemed members, Nigel Comerford, brought along his clone of Brewdog's Hardcore IPA. And after tasting this, a few of us said, yeah, let's just brew this. It was spectacular. Seriously, it was brilliant, brilliant beer. So it actually ended up being quite easy to decide the recipe. So a couple of months ago, we all packed up, headed down to Kinsale. Some people headed down the night before. I left Dublin at 5 a.m. in the morning to make it down in time for the beginning of the brew day.
Yeah, I saw the photos. You guys clearly really enjoyed yourselves.
It's a great. It was kids in the candy store. We arrived.
Just to be clear, Brian Stilts' wedding day was better. You're saying.
Slightly. But yeah, we arrived and we got a tour of Sam's very impressive premises. Now, you wouldn't think he's only been in business for a few months. We got to see all our names on the wall for helping him get started. And the match was already underway. So we all got to go to the tap room and sample some of his wares. And I will stress, this was 8:30 a.m. in the morning.
Well, I've had their black IPA, but I can safely say it wasn't at that hour of the morning. And it's a very good black IPA.
And I've never met Sam myself, but by coincidence he did judge my entry in the homebrew championships last year, and I'd never even heard of him when I read it, but I remember being very impressed by his ability to remote control judge a beer. So he knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff. So anyway, so that was our brew day. Took us about 5 weeks' time, but what we ended up with was Beoir number 1, double IPA, which crowdfunded, brewed for the people, by the people, and crammed full of hops. 9% alcohol. So,
and the name Beoir number 1, is that implying a Beoir number 2?
The name, again, I think the name caused more debate than the actual recipe. But yeah, I think we all agreed that this is something we all want to do again. So what better way to start it off, get the ball rolling, than Beoir number 1. So what I'd like to do today now is, I personally think this is one of the best double IPAs I've had in my life, and I've tried a lot. So I'd like us to just compare this to some other double IPAs that are available in the Irish market, because as I said, when we came up with this idea, this was in the dark days of 2013 when there was no double IPAs in the market. Now, there is O'Hara's double IPA, which is quite, I don't want to say anything wrong about it, it's 7.5%, very good IPA, but I can imagine if this was released in California, the word double wouldn't be on the label. This is a great IPA.
Yeah.
It's not really what you think of when you think of double IPA.
But again, as the first one, it was pushing a boundary at the time.
Yeah, it's the one which introduced Irish people to Double IPA. Since then, we have the Beoir of the Year 2014.
You're up against a heavyweight there with that beer now.
Yes, this is Galway Bay Brewery's Of Foam and Fury, which is 8.5% Double IPA from the Galway Bay Brewery. This came towards the latter stages of 2013, and when it came to voting for Beer of the Year 2014, it was runaway, head and shoulders above the rest.
And we reviewed it in Pint of View as well, and it's like one of the 3 best we've done ever, and that's across all beers, like, so that's a pretty high standard.
So the first thing I'd like to do anyway is, well, of course, taste our Beoir number 1, but I thought it could be interesting to just compare it to Hardcore IPA, because this is what the original recipe was based on. Now it evolved from a clone of Hardcore IPA. When it came to choosing hops, we got a list of what was available, the actual hops that are in Hardcore IPA. Not all of them were there, and we saw some hops that we'd never seen before, like topaz. What Irish beer has topaz in it? So
petrol station beer.
Yeah. Petrol station beer, exactly. So first thing, before we go with the Beoir number 1, if we all just have a quick sample of
that's the original,
Yes, this can kind of be to calibrate our palates.
Just while you're pouring there, Brian, I was telling you, like back in May I was in Italy, and one thing I noticed is they make very high alcohol beer that still tastes weak as heck, and that's dangerous. I was in a cafe bar, got Castello Red, it's about 6.5%, and you're talking, it tastes like a 4% beer. Extraordinary, really. Like, now this, you just tell them the nose, this is not a 4% beer. You know straight away from the nose, this is a beer which is living up to its strength. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely what I like about this. It is very strong. It is very balanced. It's very hop forward, but the kind of a biscuity flavour comes in.
Yeah, like it's sort of, there's an initial bit of strength kick to hit, but like sort of when it's in your mouth, it does smooth out quite quickly as well.
So you can see we had a lot to live up to. This is readily available in the Irish market and has been for a long time.
It's that initial feeling of bitterness that really gets so smooth going down.
And now I think it could be just interesting if, while we have this in our hands, if I just give us all that Beoir number 1 as well, so we can just have them taste side
by side would be great, yeah. I even like to compare the colour here as well.
They're identical, really, aren't they?
Well, I think it's a little darker here with Beoir, to be honest. Now, maybe that's just the light here, but like just putting them both up to the light here, which is I know off camera. But there's a little bit of more darkness, a bit more amber, I think, in the Beoir number 1.
Very little.
Okay.
I mean, it's a bigger pour.
That's true as well.
That's true. Yeah. Take note, Brewdog. half-litre bottles, please.
I wouldn't be able to.
Okay. Well, yeah, no. If you put them both on the table, I couldn't tell you which is which. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Very different nose.
Yeah. I think I'd say the Brewdog, you can get more of the hop aromas in the nose.
Yeah, it's almost a bit of licorice in the nose here to me.
It's quite mild. I remember it being stronger the first time I had it. I think.
We bought that 2 months ago, so.
Yeah, so it's faded a little bit, but.
First time I had it now, I already had about far too many beers in me to be responsible. So.
And you can't have many of them.
Your number 1's definitely smoother.
Much smoother. Like immediately, like there's next to no bitterness in the instant taste at all.
Yeah.
It is a cracking beer, though.
It is good. I'd call it dangerous as well, because again, this is 9%.
You wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. I wouldn't be going 4, but I would be going 6.
You feel the alcohol in the hardcore a lot more than you do.
You do, yeah. Like
I think it's a much simpler flavour as well. I like that.
Yeah.
There's
much more suited to the summertime drinking. Much more suited to summertime.
I think I'd say almost a confusion of malts in the hardcore IPA.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think there's a kind of a biscuitiness and a maltiness and a breadiness to this, whereas it's a much more simple beer, I think, and I much prefer it.
Very smooth, very simple, really hits the spot, I think,
And next up, I think we should look at the O'Hara's Double IPA, which is first Double IPA in Ireland, which launched just over a year ago. Actually, it was at the St Patrick's Day Festival in
the IFSC.
In the IFSC, where at the time I was working in the IFSC, and I nipped down for a lunchtime pint, where as I walked into the door I was immediately poured a pint of this, 7.5% alcohol.
Just a good way to start the evening. Or afternoon in that case. Yeah, it was afternoon.
I think I got similar treatment. It's when you start off, well, you still have to go back to work, but when you start off your evening with a pint of 7.5% beer,
I gotta say, this is a fantastic head you got me for there, Brian.
It's a lot lighter than the previous two.
It's definitely lighter, yeah.
But like, I remember when I actually first had this, it was the second beer we did in the column.
Yeah.
And in fairness, it would have been difficult for it to not do well because the preceding one was the Smithwick's Winter Spirit. But that said, like, it was still, because like, I wasn't used to double IPAs at the time, because like, you're saying, you're still talking like this is 2013.
Yeah.
We weren't used to them at the time.
Back in the dark old days.
But it's kind of weird to think about it. We're talking like 18, 19 months. It wasn't a beer on the market. Like even October, I wasn't used to double IPAs. I think Hardcore was the only one I knew at the time.
Yeah.
And so this came along and I was kind of going, wow, this is great, because I love the standard IPA from the lads in Carlow.
Yeah.
And this came along and it's kind of going, it's like that was much bolder flavours.
Yeah.
But I think it shows maturing of the Irish palate, like even in a few months, that this is starting to be that little bit kind of going, it's not actually that strong anymore type feel to it.
I think it's a decent beer. I think it suffers from the fact that it's so close to O'Hara's regular IPA. It's only, I think, 1.5-2% stronger. It's similar in flavour as well.
It's like the single IPA, just with a bit more oomph to it, but not that much more oomph.
Yeah. It's very much like kind of like a toffee flavour to it, though. Whereas the other ones, I thought that, well, the malt was there, but it was more.
It was in the background.
It was in the background. Yes, this is very much a malt forward.
Yeah. This
is toffee. Yeah.
A lot of toffee, a lot of sweetness to it,
kind of like a dark fruit flavour, fig flavour or something. Yeah.
You say the O'Hara's Irish Pale Ale. That's even not that old. I mean, O'Hara's Stout and their Mouldings Red Ale, they've been going for 10-15 years. Whereas O'Hara's Pale Ale, it's only released about 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, it's a fairly recent beer, like.
Fairly recent beer, and it's quickly, I think, become the best-selling craft beer in Ireland. You go into a pub that has the usuals on tap. You see your Guinness, you see your Heineken. And then you have, right at the very end, the little green glow that tells you there's something for me in this pub.
You're seeing that in pubs, like even the pubs which haven't seen craft as a thing.
To
them, O'Hara is the same as getting Blue Moon in. Like it's not that big a step.
It's not that big a step. It's the fancy stuff.
Yeah.
And I think O'Hara's Pale Ale in particular really hit the consistency.
Oh, it did.
Back 3 or 4 years ago when craft beers, I think I don't know whether they evolved out of homebrew or whether just some people associated them with homebrew. The staff at Messrs McGuire.
Messrs McGuire didn't really help that. It was their big sign up saying all homebrews €4. And I like the price, but not the description.
and there was a bit of an inconsistency in some of the earlier ones, whereas O'Hara's Pale Ale, I think, was consistently good. So that probably helped with a lot of pubs who were nervous about bringing in a craft beer at all.
And also, it was a very easy one for lager drinkers to get onto. It wasn't that big a step, but it was still different enough that it wasn't like
it had the flavour to it.
Exactly, it wasn't like Smithwick's Pale Ale where you're kind of going, what exactly is it apart from a lager? Like there was enough complexity to it, even though it wasn't that complex, to make you go, well, okay, this is something different. Like I've not had this before, and so for like entry level drinkers, which is always a crucial market, it's still like the vast majority of people drinking out there aren't craft beer drinkers. Like that's a crucial market to hit, and like that beer still to this day is making a huge dent in that market.
It is. You really say like at every stage, O'Hara's have been the trailblazers for craft beer in Ireland. They were there when nobody was doing it. They got in there first and they made it okay to try something else.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the other breweries have a lot of the tank for O'Hara. Of course, O'Hara's are organising the beer festival in the RDS every September as well.
And like even that as well. Like if you think about when they have that, it's like sort of start of the rugby season as well. Now it's not always in line with the Leinster game, but people are used to going to the RDS at time of year at a weekend.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of people who wouldn't normally be thinking I'm going out for the beer, and it's a lot of people like a lot of my own friends who wouldn't have been craft drinkers before have become craft drinkers because of that festival.
Yes. But anyway, back to this beer. Yeah. Definitely now, it's a very decent beer, and I think it's been overshadowed with what comes since. But I would be quite happy to give this to my American friends as an example of some of the best beers you can get in this country. So it stands up there with the best of
if it was a single IPA, we wouldn't be having any conversation over it at all.
But this is O'Hara's IPA, and I think it's time to come to
the big
Fury. Here we are.
The Holy Grail. I mean, I recently, thanks to McHugh's off license in Artane and Kilbarrack, brought back a few crates of Pliny the Elder, which is like we can't get that in this country. Of course, we can't. The legend has arrived here of Pliny the Elder. This is come on all the beer rating sites, Rate Beer and Beer Advocate, whatever. It's 100. It's the highest rated beer you can see. So. Colin McHugh, the owner of McHugh's, he was on holidays recently in San Francisco. Took a trip out to the Russian River Brewery and picked up a couple of crates of Pliny the Elder. Brought it back for us to taste in taste in his local bottle shop. Why would you ask that? Because right beside his bottle of Pliny the Elder, he had a bottle of Foam and Fury, which is readily available in this country. So I got to taste my Pliny the Elder, which, don't get me wrong, is possibly one of the best double IPAs I've had in my life. And I got to have a taste of Foam and Fury, and it totally stood up to it.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's like serious company right there.
Serious company. This maybe it wasn't the equal, but if Pliny the Elder scored a 50 in the homebrew competition, this scored a 49.
Although you are making me think, we need to get two beers out there to settle this argument once and for all. Pit the Elder and Lord Palmerston. Very floral nose, really floral nose.
No, but straight away, it's so much stronger than the previous beers.
No, it's stronger than everything. This is why we left this to last, because if I had this first, our palates would be just gone.
Oh yeah, no, we wouldn't have been able to taste the O'Hara's, and I mean that in the kindest way to the lads down there.
Like, don't get me wrong, it's not a clone of Pliny. It's a different beer, but it's its own beer. It is very, very tasty.
But it's so much drier than the previous beers as well. It's the hops and the bitterness and the aroma and the flavour from the hops are to the fore here.
Yeah.
You'd have to say that Galway Bay, they've really been pushing forward the Irish craft beer movement in the last 6 months. They've broken away from the holy trinity of craft beers, the stout, the pale ale, and the Irish red. That every craft brewery needs just to, I'm not saying
to establish yourself.
Everyone needs to establish themselves. They need a few beers that sell.
But they have a chocolate stout in their regular lineup now.
They have a chocolate,
And that, when that's your regular lineup, it's a lot about how creative you are as a brand.
I think maybe it's because they have a chain of pubs that are tied to the brewery. They can afford to.
Yeah.
They're not trying to because it's not just a case of selling it to the punters. You first have to sell your beers to the publicans.
Yeah.
Which I think is where a lot of the craft brewers feel it makes them more conservative, because they know they have to sell this to the publicans. Whereas Galway Bay don't have that. They can try something. There is they've 8
pubs across Ireland, between 3 in Galway and 5 in Dublin, I think, isn't it?
I think there's 4 in Galway.
4 in Galway now, sorry. That's 9 then.
9 pubs, yeah. And every one of them, they have a pilot beer tap, where every time you go in there, it's a different beer, and you have to try stuff. Not all of them are great. I've gone in there and I've had bad beers, but they've tried them.
And if you're willing to experiment, it's great.
You're going to end up with a beer like this.
Exactly.
And they launched a new beer just last weekend, Saison, and I went in on Tuesday and it was sold out. And I walked up to the other bar, sold out again.
Yeah.
So they're doing well.
I think this is all about the clientele as well. That people go into a Galway Bay bar and they're expecting something different. They're going in, they're kind of going, I may not like the new pilot thing, but by God, I'm going to try it out because it's always worth the risk. Just to find out what these guys are doing. Like, they're very creative out there.
That's the thing that I remember. Former beer writer Simon Johnson, may he rest in peace. He said that every craft beer, it has 6 ingredients. It has hops, barley, yeast, Twitter, Facebook, and flavor. And I follow the Brewdog, my local Galway Bay bar, and every day they post a picture of what's on cask, what's on keg, and most of the time I'm getting off the bus, coming home from work, and I'm nipping in there for a half pint to try, just because of that, It's how. It's really what we need.
But we're the first one in the broadsheet, but like the Examiner are there now. All the Irish tabloids have it. Like, it's only the Indo and the Times are holdouts for covering beer in the papers, and we were able to reach out to the community entirely because of Twitter. Because when I rejoined the Business Post, I was going in purely as a technology journalist. I said to the guys, I want to do a beer column. I'll be able to get hold of these beers, and they go, because I'll be able to find these guys on Twitter and go, listen, let's talk about your beers. I'm going to be brutally honest. If I think it sucks, I'm going to say it. I have said about a few Irish beers, because frankly, my attitude is, if you're going to be honest, they're going to get better. And that's the thing. Twitter's been so good though, because a number of breweries I've heard about, at least once a week, is a brewery I haven't heard about who's kind of going to me. Maybe they're not even Irish. Like I've got Spanish breweries getting on to me before and Danish ones. Like, and not just the lads who are at the festival at Alltech Ram. And they're kind of going, hey, here you got a column in Ireland. Can you send over a few beers to try out? And I always love when we get stuff like that because it means I get to try new beers and I also get to tell people about beers that I've never even heard of before.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think that's all our beers for today. That's episode 2 of the Irish Craft Beer Show. I have to remember the name of it. It's starting to stick now. It's no longer a working title. So thanks very much to Emmet. We'll see more of you again soon, I hope.
Oh, I hope so as well.
I hope so. We're putting together a plan for a blind beer taste testing with Emmet, so hopefully we'll have more information on that quite soon. And thanks again to John, my regular co-host. You've been on both shows.
Both shows, yeah. Regular guest.
You're not on next month's show. Next month's show, I recently visited Oslo, where as I emptied the contents of my wallet, paid more for beer than I ever paid for my life. I did get back some of the best beers I've ever tasted in my life, so I wasn't as... so I
it was worth it.
Yes, I filmed a few beer tastings in Oslo and release that as episode 3 next month, but until then we've got lots more planned, looking forward to it, and hopefully you'll join us for the ride. Cheers lads.
Cheers.